Hey to the most amazing nurses. It is Dr. V here with Morning Infusion with Dr. V podcast, where we are intentional about teaching nurses how to work from anywhere around the world, making money and owning your own time, building profitable nurse coaching and consulting businesses. You will hear from amazing guests that have grown their companies and want to share insight into how you can do the same to change the face of healthcare as we know it. If you want to grow your businesses and leverage your knowledge as a nurse to grow wildly successful businesses at the top, instead of working your way to the top, head on over and join our Millionaire Nurse CEO group on Facebook, where you can ask questions and get updates on our live and virtual events to help you grow your businesses. So today, hallelujah. And, this is going to be a great conversation because, we had all these kind of technical difficulties at the beginning, okay, with Miss Myown Holmes. So my own, all right, my own from the beginning. So I'm going to tell you what somebody said about you after you give me your introduction, okay? So go ahead. Tell me your introduction. Tell me a little bit about who you are. Like if you had to, give us your bio. Go ahead, do that.
All right. Well, good morning and thank you, Dr. V, for having me. My name is Myown Holmes. I am the founder of Socially Polished. I have a background in communications. I have over 14 years of experience in digital marketing, and that is in healthcare marketing, education marketing. I've worked for a marketing agency before then creating my own marketing agency. I also am the founder of the Prism Effect, which is an initiative I started for minority women entrepreneurs to help them focus on their mindset, their wellness, and their business. And my most important job that God gave me was first a wife to my husband of one. And have to make that clear nowadays. And listen, and a mother of four boys.
Mother of four boys. We pray about you. So now I love it. I love it. I love it. Now I'm going to tell you what someone said about you. It was actually Aviana. She said that when she started talking, she was like, well, my own, she's got my whole life all together. And I was like, listen, well, let me talk to my own then. Let her get my whole life all together. I love it. So I was like, I know that I need it because normally we only have nurses on here, but sometimes we have these people that are amazing, and so you're one of those amazing people, and so I'm loving it. So Lorraine said, "Hey, good morning, Dr. V," and wow, 4 boys. Yeah, she understands. She understands what that is about. So now let's start back. Let's go back. Okay. Let's go back to where you started. So you said that you worked in the emergency department at one point in time, right? And so what did you do in the emergency? Maybe that's the reason why you're so attracted to us nurses. Okay.
So no, I'm going to tell you why I'm attracted to nurses, what I believe it is. Outside of you are a gift to the world, right? But outside of that, my mother wanted to be a nurse. And she actually went to Tuskegee, and then she left Tuskegee and went to Hampton, but she ended up joining the military when she went to Hampton. So she never became a nurse, not even in the military. My aunt, however, did become a nurse, which my mom and my aunt were best friends. So my aunt did become a nurse. But yes, I worked in the emergency room. What's crazy is everything I've done has been surrounded in healthcare and surrounded with working with nurses. Like when I was in college, I was a CNA. And then, of course, I worked in healthcare, home health for a while, and I absolutely love the nurses. Nurses are the down-to-earth folks that work in healthcare. I mean, maybe it's just me because of my personal affinity for you all, but that's just my personal opinion. So.
I love it. Lorraine said, thank you, because not many people appreciate us. And that is the truth at times, for sure, for sure. So I love it. So now tell us, after you worked in the emergency department,
You didn't think that you wanted to become an RN? Like you went into this marketing. How did you get into marketing?
Okay, so I initially when I was in college, I went to North Carolina A&T on the Black College Tour. And I went to the PR department and I was like, oh, that is me. That is what I'm going to be, a publicist, and I'm going to work with celebrities and I'm going to help them. I wanted to be in like crisis PR management for celebrities. That was my thing. So I went to Morgan State. I was grown, and then we had our oldest son. And then I stopped for a while. And so I worked in the hospital. I'm going to just keep it 100 with y'all. I worked in the hospital because they were paying well, right? I always wanted to do PR. So then I went and I applied for a job at George Washington University. And when I worked there, I ended up working in doing a lot of marketing, like on social media, being in charge of the website. I'm sorry, y'all. Listen, I'm a cat mom too. It's like every time I go live, I feel like he can sense it, and it's like he want to get his little 5 minutes of fame. So we're gonna work through it. Anyway, so that's how my journey began. And so I loved it. I feel like God places us where we're supposed to be. So I finished out, and PR really is the cousin into marketing. So, but I just went the marketing route and I never came back. Like I can write my own press release. Like I could be a publicist if I wanted to. I just don't want that life. So
Gotcha. And you are amazing in marketing. Okay, so I think that you probably went towards your calling for sure. And Melissa said, "Yay, Aggie Pride." Apparently, she went to North A&T. You know, they're a different breed over there. They are,
and I love them. I mean, if they had a dorm for me, that's where I would have ended up. But they didn't have no dorm space, so we end up where we're supposed to be.
That's right. So now, all right. So now, tell us about. So you started having children, and your son. Now, tell me which son has autism. Is it your oldest son?
No. Our second.
Second oldest son. Okay. So tell me about what happened with your. How did you find out that he had autism?
Me.
Okay, so
before we were even diagnosed, I had the feeling, right? And I kept saying like something's different. And when he went to a preschool program when he was 3. And his preschool teacher, I love her to this day, Miss Brogdon. And she brought me in for a parent teacher conference. And she was like, hey, I'm noticing some things that are a little different. And I bust out crying because it was one, the feeling of partially like I failed, but the other feeling of I'm validated in the things that I thought. Because when I would say them to other folks were looking at me like, you're like I'm an overzealous mom. So then we went through with like our county program, and then they just give you developmental delay. And while he was in school, I kept saying like, listen, I'm telling y'all. And they're like, no, it's just a little delayed. I'm like, okay. But I'm telling you all. And my whole thing was for no other purpose than for me to be able to learn what's the best way to connect and communicate with my child and to help him in school and to help him with like the activities of daily living. The whole thing was I was learning as I went, my husband and we were assessing and changing, right? All of this is 0 to 7, assessing and changing on like how to fix things in essence, while trying to like finally have someone listen to me and get him tested. So finally, Krieger Center, that's in Maryland, I love them too, got him tested. And then at the very end, the psychologist even said like, I thought you were tripping. And until the very end is where he saw it. And the reason was because when I would see something when he was younger, then I would work on him with it. Would see something, then I would work on him with it. Would see something, then we would work on him with it. And that's how Like even today, when people there, even my aunt told me, was like, no, he'll outgrow it, and that was everybody's thing. Like he'll outgrow it. Great, but for right now, I am struggling. Like kindergarten was a struggle. Okay, it was real, and so finally, someone's like, okay, you were right. He's on the spectrum, and I learned that he had ADD, which I did not know.
Mm.
Um, and the other part to that was it didn't need medication because people always jump to that was my other thing. Like, I don't want medication. Tell me the work I need to do. And there's nothing wrong with medication. I'm an advocate for whatever your child needs. But for me, I knew that that wasn't our son's route. And with that, that was combined with me saying, okay, it's time for me to start my own business because what I kept hearing and everything that the psychologists and other physicians and the speech therapists and occupational therapists, all I kept hearing was he needs more one-to-one because there are things, and I'm like, okay, there's no daycare provider, there's no nanny that's going to, and this was my opinion, that's going to do and work with him the way that I would work with him.
So now tell me about, so I want to just give us an example of the struggles that you had when he was in kindergarten so that, and ADD is attention deficit disorder, correct?
Yes.
So people can know what that is. So Aviana said, my sisters, hey, Aviana, is in knows that my sister is at the beginning of this stage of learning how to communicate with my nephew. So tell us some challenges that you had and how you overcame those challenges.
So one of them was so look, my son is high functioning too,
Okay.
which makes it harder because there's something wrong, but he seems like everyone else to a degree, right?
Mhm.
So there was things like getting ready for kindergarten, and he had these jeans. They were Batman jeans. Shout out to my mother in love, my bonus mom, who bought these jeans, and he wanted to wear them every day. And I was like, it was one particular day, I was like, Lord, if I beat my kids, I would beat you into submission because I cannot take it. We only got two pair. You can't wear these. These people gonna think I'm dirty. Like this school's gonna think I'm crazy, right? It was things like that, and so then I realized after getting assistance, it was like a texture thing with the jeans, the way they felt. He didn't like it. Then it was tags and shirts. So then I'm running around cutting tags out of shirts, getting tagged. Back then, it didn't seem like I could really find tagless t-shirts. I was so thankful to the Lord when they came out with tagless t-shirts, right? Then in school, it's changing, like when the schedule changes, right? So, some days there may be in school a half day, right? Or if there's a school field trip, right? Or that's a change in the schedule. And so like you could have these like breakdowns, like crying breakdowns. I remember one time he forgot his lunch and I was like, okay, boo, I'll bring it to school. Now, normally when you tell your child you're gonna bring it to school, they know mama gonna bring my lunch. Like it was like 10 o'clock. Lunch is not until 11:30, 11:45. He asked the teacher to use her cell phone to call me to say, when am I bringing his lunch to school? Because I hadn't arrived yet. My school just started at 9 o'clock. Right. So it's things like that. But in knowing that, then it became, okay, so this is the thing. So now I know, okay, schedule changes are a thing. So now when there's a field trip, I would go on the field trips. But I would prepare days before, prepare him for it. If I'm not going to be picking him up for whatever reason, and maybe it's dad or maybe it's his uncle, then I have to prepare him for that. When we ended up having to put them in aftercare, I like prepared and like warmed up to that. Even when going from elementary to middle school, I was frantic. And people may not think this, but I was so thankful to COVID because I was like, I don't know how he's going to go to middle school. It's a whole other school. What if they're bullies? That's the other thing. He's super friendly, like the kindest soul. The kindest soul. And I'm like, I can't fight kids. Like all of these things are going through my head as his mother. And so then I'm like, right, what my business affords me is to be able to take the first week of school off. Right. I can do, I've done research. I've talked to different specialists. I've went to conferences, right? Virtually and in person to find out about ways to help our son. And so one of those things was being able to, the biggest thing, parents, or if you're a loved one who has a family member, advocating for when you're in that IEP meeting. Like, baby, I brace it all. I want all the things. I want all the things on my IU, like a buffet. Fill it up. Fill this IEP up with all the things.
So what's IEP?
Oh, individual education plan.
Okay. All right. Now keep going.
Okay. And so it's for when your child is in school saying, hey, these are the extra things that my child needs in order to learn effectively. Right. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Krieger and get right now he has ADD and now he has autism on his form. So now, okay, now the school knows here's some other things that we know we may need to add in for him. So you add in all of the things that he needs on the IEP and you never take them off until you're absolutely sure he doesn't need them. Because if they're not on there, then he can't have them. So one of the things that I advocated for him to have was this thing called a flash pass for middle school, meaning he gets a pass that if he's feeling overwhelmed or he's just like, it's a Monday. It used to be things in elementary. Again, we've come a long way. That it would just be if he woke up and it was a bad morning, then it's a shot to hell. Okay. So the flash pass, if for whatever reason something happened or because he internalizes, then he would get this pass to be able to go to the guidance counselor. And the guidance counselor knew to call me. Like, of course, she would talk to him, but to call me. I also had a thing where he had these weekly sessions with the guidance counselor. And I felt like it was necessary to coax him into middle school in this, because middle school here is like 4 or maybe even 5 other middle schools coming into elementary schools coming into one middle school. So this is new. It's a new transition with all of the classes, different teacher every session, different people from the people that you know at your school. Some of the people that went to your school are no longer at your school, right? So I knew that he was going to need like a transition period. But COVID came, thankfully. But then I never assessed for the transition out into a regular everyday for him. And so then now that became something that I was like, oh, because now the thing was everywhere we go, he wears a mask. Everywhere. To this day. Except for at home, of course. So there's just like little quirks and small things like that I see. And then with someone regularly, like they tell you, okay, the mask mandate is done. You can't wait to get the mask off. But in his mind, because he's a rule follower, it's if I don't wear the mask, I can get COVID and COVID kills people. Right. So now it's going to take me literally a year, right, to get him from that mindset to, I promise you it's okay. Right. But it's like the gradual is real gradual. So
I love it. I want to tell you how good a mama you are, but I'm gonna go to this commercial and then I'm gonna come back and tell you how good a mama you are. All right.
Our live event is going down twice a year in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, called the Millionaire Nurse CEO Conference. We will be covering the blueprint and master plan to grow a wealthy and flourishing company. We love that you listen to the podcast, but we want you in the room. We will be sharing insights on marketing and sales strategies so that you are able to create more impact and make more money, creating more freedom so that you can do the things that you love. So join us for the nursing event of the century. Go to vpnursing.com to sign up for this life-changing event.
So I just want to tell you how good a mama you are, because, a lot of times what happens is we think that we have to fall victim to what the system, quote unquote, says that we have to do, say, or be, right?
Mhm.
And the reality is that if we don't advocate for our own children and be there for our own children, then they won't receive the services or the things that we need for them to receive. That's
Mhm.
that's one of the things that I heard you say. But the second thing, which was so valuable, because we all know how I love some entrepreneurship. Okay, the second thing is that you were able to be there for your child. You were able to take that time off because you owned your own time, right?
Mhm.
And that's so super, super important for you to be able to do that. So tell me a little bit about how important that was.
That was everything for my husband and I, because at the time my husband worked all the way in DC. And so from where we lived, that's an hour to work, an hour from work, including the 9 hours you're at work, right? So that's almost 12 hours gone. So that afforded me, like for me, it was important for me to make sure he had, and not just him, all of our sons had balanced breakfast. That was a big thing, because gut health is very important when you're dealing with a child that has autism. Many parents don't know this, but it is, right? And so I didn't even get to, we have a son who has apraxia, which is like a speech delay, because your brain talks to basically your throat and tells your throat how to speak. And so at the time, our youngest didn't have the speech. So can you imagine working a 9 to 5? Because this was my life, working a 9 to 5, leaving my 9 to 5, sometimes having to leave early, pick the one son up, my son who has autism, taking him to therapy, then taking him back, going back to school to pick the other two up, to then take them to speech therapy and occupational therapy. And then like have activities like basketball, or because our oldest played basketball at the time. And it was a big thing for me to be at like all his games. And not only did he want to be an overachiever, so then he wanted to play on the traveling basketball team. So like having all of these things and being able to schedule out when I do my work. Then realizing, okay, I need help, and getting a virtual assistant, right, as we started to grow, so that I could still be a very present mother and not have to worry. And I will say it takes a village. When I did work my 9 to 5, my aunt was the mom, and I again, for me, my child didn't have the speech that he needed. So it was important to me who watched him, right? Because he couldn't initially speak and advocate for himself. And so my aunt she said, "Oh, you can bring him here." And so the bus dropped him off and picked him up. Then the Montessori school that our number 3 son went to was like, "Oh, he can come here half day," because I still wanted him to have the learning. Because I'm like, he's bright, he just doesn't have the speech. Right. Now he my first child, my youngest, that almost got kicked out of preschool. Okay. because
What he do? What he do?
because people don't realize when a child doesn't have the speech, they can't talk, they use everything else,
Gotcha.
their hands. So you take his toy, instead of saying that was my toy or taking it back, he's just like,
We'll
boom,
beat you
that's
down.
my toy. Right. Boom, that's my toy, let me get that back. Right. And so people didn't realize that. But because I started working in my business, having more time with our children, our son that had apraxia, who was actually ended up having to go for kindergarten to a special school to be in a special like ed classroom, being able to work with him in that time when kindergarten came around, then he was able to be in what they call inclusive, which is a regular classroom. He was able to be in an inclusive classroom for kindergarten. Our son that's on the spectrum he's going to high school, regular public high school, in inclusive classrooms on the honor roll. So, okay. Um, All of our sons are on the honor roll, actually. And so I know that. I know no one could tell me otherwise. If I hadn't have said to my husband, like, listen, I need to start my own business so I can just be home more. And my husband not being supportive and saying, okay. And he always tells me to this day, I know that if you ask me to do something in regards to like business related or with the kids, and you're adamant, I know whatever you envision to be the end goal is going to happen because that's how hard I push for. And so now I feel like now it's like, whew, I can like relax and breathe a little, even though he's going to high school, right? But I have these things in place, and I've had experience transitioning from one school setting to another that helps us. And the other piece with that is it is big to advocate for your children. No one, not a soul on this earth, is going to advocate for your child like you are as his parents. And I say that because going into middle school, they wanted him to be in like two type of special ed classrooms. And I was like, so what's his electives? And they were like, oh, well, he won't have electives. No go. That was a no for me. I'm like, who want to be in school all day schooling? he needs to experience school like everyone else. And they're like, yeah, but I was like, his dad and I can work with him. One thing about it, he got two parents that love him and will work with him. And it was true. As my husband, I'm going to be real with y'all once again. Like, it's a journey. And because the journey is hard sometimes when I'm working on that schoolwork, and I'm like, son, nah, listen, nah. All right. And I could feel myself, and I don't want to be like that. So my husband's like, hey, let you do this. Because 1+1 is 2. I don't know this new math that they're trying to teach and how he not getting what they trying to teach, and he there all day and I'm supposed to get it. Right. And so then my husband's like, just go take a walk. I don't want to walk. I want him to understand what I'm trying to teach him. So sometimes we get to spend quite a bit of time at home reteaching, because that ADD piece that he has is his focus is elsewhere. When it's not something that he's vested in, his focus goes elsewhere. The teacher loses him. So it's important, one, for the teacher to make sure that what's in his planner is what's for homework, so that we can go back, look and see what they went over. And this is what I made mandatory in his IEP. And so when the teacher is not doing their part, I get it, you got 50,011 students, but you also got a job. So when the teacher is not doing their part by filling out the pieces on the portal, okay, y'all don't want to use Planner Cool Beans, put it in the portal so I can go and look in there. But when you're not doing that piece, then how do I know, right? Because we have to come home and reteach a lot of things in math, right? Now math's not so much, but in like language arts, right? Because the long form reading, we lose him because of the ADD, right? And so, and then, but that's part of what I signed on for, because I said to them, he doesn't need that extra class where it's like a study hall. I was like, who in the study hall? Because I know as an entrepreneur that your circle matters. And one of the things that they did with him in his preschool was they've always had him in inclusive classrooms where some of the children had IEPs and some did not. And their hope was that children with the IEPs and with some of the delays can learn from the children who are excelling. And so if you're trying to put him in these classrooms with everybody is just like him, how's he going to excel and learn?
That's right.
The same thing in business. So I'm like, no beans.
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing this. Matter of fact, I'm trying to sign him up for the foreign language. And they're like, huh? Yes. So just advocate for your child. And there are things that I'm learning in business that have, like I said, helped me and transferred into how I teach my children and things that I want them to learn and know.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. You are an amazing mother. And, Melissa's giving you kudos. She said my BFF and sister need to see this video. And Emily said, I needed this so much. Thank you for sharing this. So your story definitely matters. And I always say this, that, we always have, people out here who have different specialties, right? But the reality is that people see you and them, right? And that's the reason why they gravitate towards you. And that's the reason why I'm a huge advocate of telling the story of how you got to where you are, because you are amazing at who you are. And so I love it. So tell people where they can find you.
No, I was gonna say something funny, but I won't say it. You can find me here.
I want to tell everybody about Myown now. If you want to go out with Myown she's gonna go out. She's gonna go out in style. She's one of our bougie type of. I don't know if she likes to wear bougie, but she is kind of okay. It is what it is. Like she likes to go out in high style. Okay, I've got a few friends like her. But anyway, go ahead. Tell us where we find you.
Well, I take that as a compliment, so I thank you so much. I don't call it bougie. I call it knowing what I like. So there we go. You can find me on Facebook at Socially Polished or at Myown. You can find me on Instagram at Myown Now. You can find me on LinkedIn. Search Myown Holmes. I'm there. You can find me if you're in B&E. I pop in sometimes. I feel so blessed and honored that the nurses have taken me under their wing as an honorary nurse and allowed me into their space. And so I thank you, Dr. V. I thank Alviana as well for saying, okay, you can be our little nurse sis. So I thank you for that.
Well, you're amazing. We have a master class that's coming up August 15th. It's going to be amazing. So I encourage you to sign up for that. Of course, the Millionaire Nurse CEO Conference coming up August 25th and 26th. We have the master class that happens every month, because that's what we do, because we want to make sure that all the nurses are getting what they need. And so you guys have a phenomenal rest of your day. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for commenting, share this video, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.